Welcome back to the Bitcoin Source, your go-to destination for exclusive interviews and deep dives into the world of Bitcoin. I'm your host, Daru, and today we're honored to have a special guest joining us, Jeroen Develter. Urien has been making waves in the Bitcoin space, and today we're going to cover not only some fascinating topics like Bitcoin's growing institutional demand and the rise of BTC-Fi, but we're also going to dig into Urien's personal journey and what led him to where he is today. Let's get right into it. Welcome, Urien.
Hey, Dodo. Thank you so much for having me.
So, Urien, before we dive into the Bitcoin and all the innovation happening in the space, I wanted to take a step back and talk about you. What was your background before you got into Bitcoin, and what were some of the key moments in your life that led you to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to talk about that. So, hey everyone, my name's Jeroen. I'm the CEO at Persistence Labs. Basically, how I started actually in this industry. Can actually have to go a little bit back into like what I studied. So I studied in Belgium. I'm originally from Belgium. I studied business engineering. It's like a combination between finance, business, and engineering. Graduated as a business engineer and started my career straight off in consulting. Did a bunch of consulting in finance, finance, insurance. So started off with that in the early days. Did that in Belgium, but then kind of moved quite quickly to abroad. Like I wanted to explore the world. Basically, moved to France. Worked in Paris for 2 years, also as a consultant in financial services. Worked for the bigger banks in France. Then eventually moved on from consult. I actually moved on from France to Singapore, where I did a similar job but with different banks. So got more and more experience into the world of finance. A lot of stuff on the risk side. So did a lot of project management, a lot of delivery of projects, IT projects specifically, always with the tech angle that was in play for those banks. But at some point, kind of got bored a little bit of the corporate world, wanted to do something else, and basically joined a fresh startup that was started in Singapore by two guys. I joined as a third guy, basically, to help and build out this company in the interesting space of fashion tech. So quite different from what I do now, but basically, fashion tech company was delivering made-to-measure clothes to guys. Basically, it's a product only for men, actually. But basically, doing the entire tech and operations aspect from that and managing the entire thing in Singapore, while the two founders actually moved out to the UK and started the company there. I grew the company in Singapore. Did quite well there, actually. We're part of the top 100 of fastest growing startups in Singapore for multiple years in a row, actually. But then COVID happened, and in a business where we sell suits and shirts that are made to measure, in a world where not a lot of people wear suits because weddings are not happening and people are not going to the office, it was a bit of a calmer period for us. So obviously, we had to kind of transition the business a little bit to navigate those choppy waters. Which we did, but in the same time, like I got a renewed interest in looking at crypto, which at that time was a very interesting topic. I actually looked at crypto a while back before that, actually, but more in like a personal capacity, more in terms of like, oh, let's invest in a few coins, let's have a look there. And but yeah, eventually, like during COVID, really my interest in everything crypto kind of reached new heights, and I kind of reconnected with one of my old colleagues from the finance and consulting days, who started a company called Persistence, and yeah, one thing led to another, and I basically joined him on his journey to kind of dive into the world of crypto. Proof of stake at that time, yeah, was the main thing that we were working on. Now we're actually working more and more on the Bitcoin side, which I'm sure we'll dive into in a second. But yeah, that's kind of the short version of like how I got here and what I've done in the early years of my career.
Awesome. And of course, Urien, everyone's Bitcoin journey starts somewhere. And, we'll definitely dive into that right now. When did you first hear about Bitcoin and what was your initial reaction? Were you immediately skeptical or did you see the potential of it from early on?
Yeah, so I'll tell you, I saw it first in 2010, and I completely missed it. Like I saw it, I did some mining. It was back in the days when you could actually still mine it on your own personal computer. So I did a few of these things. I was a bit of a tech geek at the time, but but I didn't see it for what it was. I was 10 years younger than, or like actually more than that. I was 14 years younger than what I am today. And I just didn't see it. Look, honestly, I didn't even read the white paper at that time. And I just left it for what it was. I just like didn't think of it much. And then only in 2017 or so started to kind of realize, oh damn, I've looked at this thing before. And then I actually did read the white paper, and it kind of all sounded familiar. And then I looked it up and looked at these wallets. Oh, I'm so familiar with all these things. But yeah, completely missed it when I first saw it. Only in 2017 kind of picked it back up and started to read a bit more, invest a little bit on the sideline. But then again, in a way, stepped away until 2021, until I really realized, look, this is actually so interesting as a movement. And I want to go like full time into this industry. I think it's a super interesting industry. So many moving parts, and it's like very high energy, and I want to be part of that. And so yeah, that's how it happened for me.
Yeah, and making the leap from being interested in Bitcoin to actually working in the space full time is a big step. I think a lot of people are trying to get there, or they're actually in the space right now. What was that transition like for you? Was there a defining moment or experience that made you realize this is what I want to dedicate my career to and just fully immerse myself into this ecosystem?
I think it's not like one like unique defining moment. It's more like a full period of moments, especially COVID, where I had like so much time to read, and like um, I read so much. I literally read about every like protocol in the space back then. Like really did a lot of trial and error, like trying out all these things. I got captured in a way by the opportunity that DeFi had. Like started to do all these things in the DeFi space. Back then, Ethereum like really starting to boom. So tried out a lot of things. And look, I have that background in finance. I have that background in tech. And this kind of like I've tried one of each. Like I first tried finance, then I tried the tech side with the fashion tech business. And this seemed to me like, wow, actually you can put one and one together. And this is like finance and tech together. And it's in a new way, like it's building like the new finance world, like on crypto rails in a way. And I just got attracted to it. I finally started to put things together and say, look, this is actually something I would probably be good at, and I just tried it out and say, look, I'm going to read more, I'm going to dive more into it, and eventually like I'll see, and I'll see where I end up.
Yes, and let's shift some gears here and kind of talk about the rise of institutional demand for Bitcoin. Of course, if you've been in the space the last 2 or 3 years, we've had some huge leaps in the space, from ETF approval to bans to all different things that were happening in the ecosystem for not only Bitcoin but crypto across the board. In your experience, what's driven these institutions to finally start paying attention, and what do you think this means for the long-term adoption of Bitcoin?
Yeah, I think the main thing that drives attention eventually is the fact that there is an opportunity to create yield in a way, and create returns on investment. I think that's what draws like institutions typically to any industry, like the opportunity that is there. In crypto, that's not any different, and I think especially with these ETFs, like you now see that is actually accelerating quite a bit. Like the institutions now have access to this, but they actually have, in a way, it's the top of the iceberg, right? Like having access to Bitcoin is the very first thing. I do still think that like investments into further protocols, other opportunities in the space are still pretty limited, I would say, for the wider institutions. But yeah, what I think it's in a way like how I can summarize. You look, the finance, or the traditional finance world has always been kind of dictated by the different like yields that are there, and especially like US Treasury bonds, and like the yield that you can get there. And in a way, at some point, like it's people or institutions are looking for other sources of yield as well. And in the same way that like interest rates dominate traditional finance, I think that in a way the yield generated on Bitcoin and even on ETH will kind of dictate a little bit the way crypto goes in the future. And we see that now more and more playing out, like with the building on top of Bitcoin. We actually see protocols that are building yield products on top of BTC. On ETH, there has been yield actually. I think that's not even approved yet in the ETH ETFs and things like that. But yeah, I think that's to me the main attention drawing like part of crypto from institutions is the fact that you can actually generate yield on new assets. It's a new kind of asset category, a new asset class, and I do think it's just interesting to look at from a financial perspective, which draws attention.
Yeah, most definitely. And you have DeFi or decentralized finance, and then you have Bitcoin, and it's just super interesting to see you kind of meshing these two things together. So with the rapid growth of BTC Fi, where are there any developments or challenges on the horizon? Like this is something that's completely new to me. I've been in the space since 2017. I've never heard this kind of meshing of these two kind of conversations. So what has been the biggest challenge so far in working with BTC Fi, and how do you envision overcoming some of these hurdles in the near future?
Yeah, absolutely. And then maybe to answer that question, like want to take like a small step back in a way in terms like how we got here. Originally Bitcoin has been designed in a way to think very initially to be like a form of payment, right? That was the very original vision. It kind of turned out to be more of like a store of value, a form of digital gold, as everyone kind of knows it. It's like an asset that you can buy and hold because the inflation is kind of, I mean, it's limited, right? There's a max supply, there's 21 million tokens, and it's not going to go beyond there. So it's like it was always seen in that way. Meanwhile, you saw other networks such as Ethereum that really had a different focus in a way. That was not their main focus. Their main focus was in a way programmability and bringing kind of smart contracts into these decentralized networks, so make it possible to build applications that are decentralized and run based off on these smart contracts. But that was something that Bitcoin never really looked at or never really prioritized. Now, Bitcoin gained massive adoption, massive scale in terms of users, in terms of holders, right? But this programmability aspect was always lacking. And now, more recently, like since the Taproot upgrade on the Bitcoin network, more and more things are actually becoming possible to actually have similar functionalities as what you have on Ethereum, starting to develop on the Bitcoin side. So you have actually these layer two specifically that are coming up, which inherit in a way the security of the Bitcoin network when it comes to like economic security of the blockchain. But they are also able to offer smart contracts. They're able to offer like fast transactions. They're able to offer a lot of these things that initially wasn't there on Bitcoin. And now that's kind of a next phase of scaling for Bitcoin, which I think opens up so many doors. Now, with that, with all of these like Bitcoin layer twos that are coming up to kind of solve the scalability and the programmability issue that Bitcoin has had since the beginning, we actually open a new can of worms in a way where there are new issues being created. It's always like that. And one of those main issues that we have identified is the fact that there's going to be fragmentation. We've seen that fragmentation play out on the Ethereum ecosystem as well. There's a couple of very prominent layer twos on which most of the DeFi activity is happening. And on Bitcoin, we see that as well. There's already 40, 50 layer twos being built and kind of competing with each other to attract those DeFi users, to attract TVL in a way. But what we see is that it's very hard for these ecosystems to be connected. They're actually not connected. They're all connected to the layer one of Bitcoin itself. But that is a very slow layer, right? It's not even not even close to Ethereum in terms of speed. But so these layer twos, what we are trying to do, and one of the challenges that we're trying to solve is connecting these different layer twos that are built on Bitcoin, so that if you want to move from one layer two to another layer two with your assets, that can be done very quickly. It's some sort of a bridge that allows you to transfer assets between different layer twos without having to go through the slow layer of Bitcoin L1.
Yes, and I think the way the technical stack works now with Bitcoin, you're seeing a lot of layer two solutions coming out, and it's like kind of a no-brainer. Like you absolutely have to have a bridge just to get that speed and efficiency from the layer one main protocol. So I'm always hearing about the term bridge, and a lot of people trying to find ways to build that out. But one thing I wanted to build on, Urien, was interoperability, right? So that's key for Bitcoin's ecosystem. If you're in the space, you're well aware of this, especially for something that BTC Fi would have to expand its kind of initial stack, right? So can you explain why solving this issue is so critical, and what would a world be with a fully interoperable BTC Fi system look like?
Yeah, absolutely. And so interoperability, in a way, I mean, the easiest way how I can compare it to it, or like give like a real world example, maybe that maybe people understand easier than talking about the technical stuff. It's almost like, let's say when you go to a bank, like let's say I'm a European citizen, I go to the US, right, and I have my European bank card. Uh, I want to pay somewhere, like at a restaurant, whatever. I want to pay with US dollars, but I don't have US dollars, right? So I just go to the payment terminal, I just tap my card, and the bank will convert it in the background, like will convert the bill into USD or from USD to euros, and like I'll be debited like euros while the payment was actually in US dollars. You don't think about this, but in a way that's interoperability, like in interoperability between banks, between the payment provider there, between the credit card provider, in a way that all works together, where as a user, you don't have the experience of fragmentation, but in a way it is a very fragmented world where there are so many different third parties kind of involved in that one simple transaction. And how I look at this in the Bitcoin ecosystem is very similar. You know, like if now you go onto, let's say, one layer two application and you want to deposit the form of Bitcoin that they accept there into, let's say, borrowing lending protocol, and you want to borrow, let's say, US dollars against that, you have to first and foremost make sure that you have that form of BTC. But if there's so many different forms of BTC, so many different forms of layer twos, not everyone's going to have that specific asset. You'll have to transfer that in a way first from what you have to the one that is accepted on that platform before you can use it. And that's actually where we want to come in. And that's actually what we are solving. We're trying to make it so easy that for the user, in terms of user experience, whatever the form of asset you have, you don't have to think about it. You'll be able to use it in the applications that you want to use on any of the Bitcoin layer twos. And to me, that is called interoperability. In a way, it's also a form of like just making sure that everything is composable in a way. And that's what something that DeFi has been like standing for a long time. It's like you have these open protocols, open source code, and everyone should be able to connect and use the parts that they want to connect with. And that's for me like an extreme form of composability. If anything can kind of work together in the way that you want, and that's what we're trying to do.
That's awesome, man. I really like to hear that. I'm super excited to see what you plan on continuing to build out on this front, because I think that this is exciting stuff. And of course, for the audience, for the people that are new to Bitcoin, new to this space, of course, this might seem confusing or way above your head, but continue to watch shows like this, continue to reach out to people like Urien and see what he's building, because this is a whole new frontier for people. This is like the wild west of technology, and to just hear these conversations is super awesome. And Urien, looking into the future, what's your personal vision for BTC-Fi? Do you think that it has the potential to revolutionize how Bitcoin is used in finance? And what role do you hope to play in making that vision a reality?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do have very high hopes for for BTC-Fi. I mean, I've said this a few times already in the past. Like, I actually think BTC-Fi, or what people call BTC DeFi, is going to overtake Ethereum DeFi in a way. Maybe even a more extreme statement on this is that like whatever has been happening on Ethereum was kind of a test net of sorts for Bitcoin, and now we're actually bringing it to Bitcoin, the main network, the how to say, the forefront of crypto in a way. So I'm a big believer on BTC-Fi. In a way, what I think is that even if you look at like all the activity that's currently happening on Ethereum, I don't think that there will be so many new things being invented, but I do think just the fact that now you can actually do them secured by the Bitcoin network, we'll just see a lot of like copycats in a way. The same things will happen, and then we'll kind of start off on Bitcoin as well. But that's just the first aspect. That's DeFi, right? I think with that, what it enables as well is something that we hadn't had before, and that's also more recent. I talked about it earlier as well. It's the yield on Bitcoin. So by nature, Bitcoin is not yield bearing, right? It's like a digital asset like gold, where there's typically no yield. Now, because of DeFi and because of all the activity that is happening on top of Bitcoin, Bitcoin can actually become yield bearing in a way, right? So you can actually deposit Bitcoin, and you can earn more Bitcoin in a way, which is nice. There's different forms of getting there, by the way. Like you can get it by like lending out your Bitcoin and then letting that Bitcoin be used. You can now stake your Bitcoin actually, which is completely new. It's something that comes from the proof of stake world, where you can actually stake your Bitcoin, secure other applications or even blockchains with that staked Bitcoin, and earn a fee for that. So another way of earning BTC. But in a way, I do think that just that possibility of earning yield on Bitcoin will change the way Bitcoin works, and it will attract even more and more people into the industry, because now you actually have something that competes even more with what people know. It's something like, okay, your saving account in your bank, because now you have something that earns a little bit of interest in a way. So I do think BTC-Fi will grow to a stage where like it will actually be way bigger than Ethereum DeFi. I do think that institutional adoption will keep on coming. I think every corporate in the world will eventually have some Bitcoin on their balance sheet. I think even every government in the world should probably have some Bitcoin on their balance or on their books in a way. And I think like, yeah, it's going to be huge. I think we've just started in a way, and yeah, I think the beauty of it that is it's like a decentralized system. It's very predictable in nature as a financial asset because it's all there. Like everyone knows exactly what's going to happen. So yeah, I'm very bullish in general on Bitcoin. I'm a big believer, as you can see, and that's also why I love to build in this space. It's just so much fun, and I feel like we're building the future of finance here. And like what we are doing is just a small part of it. Like what we do is we make that asset movable in a more easy way. Like for an asset to be money, you have to have like the velocity of money, right? Like money needs to move around for it to like be really liquid and be very useful. And that's what we do. So that's a small part of it. Like we help to make the asset very transferable between all the different options you have and like where you can use the Bitcoin itself. So yeah, that's my vision on this, and like yeah, how I hope to contribute to that world where in a way everything runs on Bitcoin.
Yes, and building a career in such a fast-paced and evolving space such as Bitcoin obviously comes with its highs and lows. I'm sure you have plenty of tales on that. What has been some of your personal challenges, and what are the moments you found to be most proud of in your journey so far?
Yeah, good question, and absolutely, I think some people like don't see the backside of it. Obviously, like it comes at a high toll in a way. Like it's very demanding. It's a 24/7 industry where the market's always open. You're expected to always be online. We speak to hundreds of people in the space on a weekly basis. We have like so many Telegram groups, chats with everyone, where you continuously try to kind of push the boundaries of like what's possible. So it's very fast paced in a way, always is very demanding. But I do think having just the right people to work with, the right people behind you as well, like people like me who have a family with kids, is obviously not easy to always be traveling as well. There's so many conferences around the world that we attend to kind of spread the word, spread the knowledge, and try to find partners and things like that. So it's very demanding, but in a way, it works well if you have a well supporting network of friends, of family, of colleagues that are kind of all in the same mental space. And I think that's one thing we as a company have always prioritized as well. It's like the physical health and mental health in a way. It's like really pushing the boundaries there, making sure that you're fit at all times, like going to the gym, work out, sleep well, eat well. Health in a major way, I think, is important, because if you're mentally, physically not healthy, then it's impossible to do this work for a long time as well. So yeah, we always prioritize like the long term thinking, and I think that has helped me. And yeah, it's been awesome in that way as well. Like it's in a way like been very develop. How do you say? Like it developed me well. I would say the industry itself.
Yes, and for anyone listening who's looking to get into Bitcoin development or BTC Fi specifically, what advice would you give them? Are there any key lessons or mistakes outside of what you just mentioned that you learned along the way? And when you think about value like mental health, physical health, spiritual health, are those some of the things that people should just start off in this industry doing, or those things that they should build on as they continue to grow in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think mental health, physical health, all these things you should do anyway. Like regardless of the industry you are in,
Yeah.
I think everyone should do those. Really get to know yourself, get to know your body, and like know what you can and cannot do in a way. Um, I think other than that, it's like yeah, read a lot, remain like very interested, and kind of yeah, be curious in a way. Look, I think in crypto, there's no one that is showing or flashing their degree. To be honest, like no one cares what you studied, what your background is. It's all about like how much have you read, how much do you know about the space, how much have you tried. Look, I think a big part of it is like trying out what is out there, understanding how everything works. So much is open source, so you can literally read everything. Everyone is so, in a way, open as well to share like knowledge and teach you things. So I think it's very much about being out there, being open. Tell people what you want to learn, and you'll find it. Honestly, like everyone is very open to sharing, and yeah, it's more of like, I think it's a curious attitude that you have to have in a way, and then in a way the persistence to kind of continue to go after like what you want to do and like what you want to achieve in your world. It's kind of how I look at it.
And finally, if you had to make some predictions, where do you see BTC Fi and Bitcoin in the next 5 to 10 years? And what are some of the biggest trends and developments we should be looking out for?
Yeah, I think my prediction for, I think BTC or BTC Fi is that like, I think it should take a couple of years, but I think 5 years is probably a good time horizon for it to overtake Ethereum DeFi. I think it won't be much earlier than that, but I think that would be my 5 year prediction, is that BTC Fi and DeFi on Ethereum are kind of equivalent. Um, then I think in terms of other predictions, let me see what else I predict. Look, I think in terms of BTC itself, the asset, I think it will be very, very widely adopted. I would be surprised if there would be like many like let's say governments that haven't even started looking at it, like governments, pension funds, and things. I would be very surprised if, let's say, in 10 years from now, it wouldn't have to like, or it wouldn't be started in that direction. Um, I mean, I think it will like probably be earlier even, but yeah, I think in a way it's a train that has started running and it's going faster and faster, and I feel like eventually everyone's gonna jump on board, or in a way you'll be left behind. And yeah, I'm not sure if that answers your question. Did I answer all parts of your question? I'm not sure.
Yeah, you definitely did, and I have to agree that this is kind of what I've been doing for the last 4 or 5 years, which is just shouting from the rafters to tell people that this is the future. And a lot of people are still on the fence, or they're still waiting for like a political leader to tell them, or a certain big banking institution to say this is a go. But ultimately, like, you have to do your own research. You have to really dig into what this asset is, and really how it's like the gold rush, or the new invention of the internet. Like, you have a window to kind of realize what this is, invest in it, support it, build on it, and create businesses around it. And then you'll be a lot better off in the future than you are now, because we're kind of going into this digital age, and we're moving ourselves from the stagnation of some of these old business models. And we're now having this new digital revolution, which is Bitcoin. And I'm just super excited to be a part of it. I'm super excited to talk to people such as yourself, Urien. And I think the future is very bright for this technology and for this ecosystem going forward.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Like honestly, I resonate with those things a lot, and I'm like happy to have people in the space like you also who really help to push forward that movement of Bitcoiners, builders on Bitcoin, kind of continue to orange pill kind of people in the world who like in a way in a way like I push people to be curious, and that's it. You know, like if they read about it, they're not interested. Fine, I'm not gonna try and convince anyone, but at least I want people to be open about it. Like look into it, take it serious as well, because I think in a way it's a serious industry and it doesn't get the seriousness and the attention yet that it, in my opinion, deserves. Um, Probably for a bunch of different reasons, like meme coins and maybe a bunch of other things that are kind of shady. Um, but yeah, I do think like there is some serious business. There's a lot of serious people like building behind the scenes, which many of the people don't know. It is in a way a very serious industry, I think, and yeah, we're making strides, making things go forward. And yeah, as you say, it's like it's the future, and I'm happy to be part of it as well.
Yes, likewise. Urien, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today on the Bitcoin Source. For our listeners who want to follow your work and stay up to date, where can they find you?
Yeah, so they can find me in the traditional way. So both myself and the company, you can find us on Twitter or X nowadays. So my handle is DN. It's actually Deneorai. It's basically the D and then my name spelled backwards to make it confusing. Company handle is Persistence1. You can find us on Twitter, and there you'll find the links to our Telegram or Discord channels. Anything there that you can find. Our website is persistence.one. I think that's the best way actually to look at it as well. It shows very clearly what we are doing. So persistence.one, probably the easiest way actually.
Nice. And thank you so much for sharing your journey and insights with us today. I know our audience will find a lot of value in what you shared. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning into the Bitcoin Source. If you enjoyed today's episode, please do not forget to subscribe and stay updated by hitting the notification bell. In the meantime, continue to build Bitcoin, continue to have great conversations and network, and continue to innovate. Thank you.
Thank you so much.